Welcome to Direction Northeast. Hello, I'm Mikayla Ramey. This program is a presentation of the Communications Department at Northeast State Community College. The Criminal Justice Program at Northeast State prepares students to move on to higher level programs for careers as law enforcement officers, lawyers, government agents, probation and parole officers, and other law enforcement related careers. We will meet up our guests and start our discussion following these messages.
Over 10 years in investigations.
25 in heating and air conditioning.
15 years in the automotive industry.
22 in computer science.
23 years in healthcare.
An engineer.
A biochemist.
A chemist.
An award-winning author.
Northeast State professors bring experience to the classroom, a personal education from a professional. Classes when you need them, where you need them. More than 150 programs. Visit northeaststate.edu. Northeast State Community College. We're here to get you there.
Our guest today is Eric Stanton, criminal justice instructor here at Northeast State. Hi Eric, how are you doing today?
It's good seeing you. Thank you for having me.
Too. Welcome to Direction Northeast.
Thank you.
All right. So you're going to tell us today about what you do here at the college.
Absolutely. Thank you first off for having me, and it's great to be here with you folks today. I'm actually a full-time instructor of criminal justice here at Northeast State, also the only full-time instructor that we have here at Northeast State, so stay very busy to say the least. But here at Northeast State, I'm honored and I'm blessed to have several students, more than several, many fine students, more than several. But anyway, we got outstanding students in our criminal justice program. And we actually have 2 degrees here at Northeast State. The first one is an AAS, which is Associates of Applied Science. That is a go-to-work type degree where our students do 4 semesters with us and then go to work usually for state and local entities. We have a majority of our students are actually in that program. We also have the AS program and the AA, which is the Associates of Science and Associates of Arts. And that's what's more like what we call college prep type courses, where the students will take actually 4 criminal justice classes with us. Then they end up moving on and taking the other courses that they need in order to transfer to ETSU, Milligan, University of Tennessee, King, wherever they like to go to. So basically what they do is they take 12 hours with us, and then they move on and take the rest of their courses in such as humanities, fine arts, history, sciences, stuff of that nature.
Wow. Do you know where most of your students go to, which college they choose?
Most of our students end up going to East Tennessee State University. We have a great working relationship with them and their program over there. Great folks over there, work with them. And so most of our students end up going there to complete their last 2 years. Some of them end up not majoring in criminal justice, and the reason being that some of the federal agencies and places like that prefer for our students to look at stuff like computer forensics, accounting, stuff of that nature. So if a student comes to me and has a real need and desire to want to go to work for the FBI or something like that, I'll actually encourage that student to look at something else besides criminal justice for their last 2 years over at ETSU or wherever they decide to go to, because again, those type agencies are looking for something very specific and something that can actually put you above the rest of their candidates.
Oh, wow, okay. So what are the major specific classes that are required in this degree that you teach here?
There's actually 4 classes that are required for every criminal justice student, whether they're working on the AS program, the AA, or the AAS. And that is Intro to Criminal Justice, Introduction to Law Enforcement, Intro to Corrections, and Intro to Legal Process. Now, Intro to Legal Process is much like American government, except we focus a lot more on the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, because most of those, especially the 4th, really relates to law enforcement. 5th and 6th, right to remain silent, right to an attorney, relate obviously as well. And of course 7th and 8th with speedy trial and cruel and inhumane punishment, not to have cruel and inhumane punishment, relate directly to our students. So it's very important that we make sure we get them to expose to that. But those are the 4 that are required. The AAS students then will take additional courses in criminal intelligence, understanding terrorism, juvenile probation. There's a whole host of them. I can't get with the rest of them, but basically they're going to there's a ton of them. If you wouldn't have asked me, I could have told you.
Yes.
But there's a whole ton of them that they continue to take. And of course, the reason being, again, with the AAS program is that's what we call a terminal degree. Once the students are finished with that degree, then they're done. If they decide that they want to go on and go back to ETSU or go to another school like that, unfortunately, the one negative thing about the AAS degree is then they have to go back and take those humanities, those fine arts and stuff like that they missed by not taking the college prep route. So when a student comes into my office and I advise them, because I advise all the criminal justice students, advise every single one of them, you know this, okay, advise
I know.
I know, you've been in a couple of my courses. I advise all of the criminal justice students. One thing I'm going to ask them is, what do you see yourself doing? And we're going to try and narrow it down, because criminal justice is a lot more than just law enforcement. It's besides being law enforcement, it's the courts, it's probation and parole, and it's corrections. So not everybody has to be a gunslinger, so to speak, and become a police officer. So that's just one element of it. And the criminal justice system works together as a whole. And the modern day criminal justice system really came about after 1968, after the Safe Streets Act went into law, and at the same time as the Civil Rights Act of 1968 was going into law. And it's where the federal government basically took over control, if you will, the standardizations and training of police officers across the country. But they also made the system work together, because up to that point the system were doing their own thing. And so you had corrections doing one thing, law enforcement doing one thing, probation, parole doing one thing, and the courts doing one thing. And so again, they weren't working together as a team. And of course all of them go together, because myself as a former law enforcement officer, from the time I respond to a scene, okay, find out the issue, investigate, and charge, that's my part of the process. Then from there, of course, the folks have to go through courts, corrections, probation, parole, not necessarily in those order, but something of that nature. And so they'll end up exercising the whole system time they go through the process. So it's better if we work together as a group. So there's a lot more. That's a myth. Everybody thinks, a lot of folks think when they come to the criminal justice program at Northeast State or other institutions that we're just there to train future cops and folks that are going into law enforcement, and that's not the case.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of law enforcement, there's over 18,000 law enforcement agencies across the country, and all of them have vast things they do that are similar, but there's also things they do that are different. And a lot of people end up, just because they might not want to work for a city police department like Johnson City, Jonesboro, Elizabeth, and something of that nature, or work for a county sheriff's office like Washington County, Sullivan County, or something of that nature, they might want to look at a different type of law enforcement. For example, somebody that has an interest in wildlife might want to look at, in wildlife law, might want to look at Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency. Yeah. So it's important that when somebody comes to us early on and comes to me, especially as an advisor, that I talk to that student and I see the direction they're wanting to go, because we can get through a semester or two, maybe at the most, before they need to be locked in on basically what they're planning to do. Yeah. And I'm working with a young lady right now, one of my students, to where she's new in the program. She knows she wants to do something in criminal justice, but she doesn't know what. So I've said...
So she's got time.
Exactly. But
she's got time to figure out what she wants.
Absolutely. And of course what I say to her is, you need to write out for me what you really enjoy and what you really like. And she's done that for me. So what I'll do is I'll review it, look at it, and then try and find the best fit for her based on what she's wanting to do. Because again, with 18,000 agencies out there, not everybody has to be a municipal or county deputy or municipal police officer. There's many other agencies out there that you can do in law enforcement. So it's very important what we do, but it's also very diverse in what we can do.
Yeah, well, see, I took several of your classes, and I love them. They were great.
Thank
so
you.
why don't you tell us about what all you teach here? Like, what specific classes you teach here at Northeast State?
Me personally, I teach all the core courses. So what we're talking about: the Intro to Criminal Justice, the Intro to Law Enforcement, the Intro to Corrections, and Legal Process. I also teach criminal investigations. I also teach criminal intelligence and understanding terrorism, and those are the ones I teach. I also have taught in the past American government, which I thoroughly enjoyed teaching, and education, college success and lifelong learning as well. But primarily based on the number of students, we're blessed in the fact that we have a growing program in criminal justice, because we're building such great partnerships. And I have to say kudos to my boss, Dr. Wong, and to my department, Behavioral and Social Sciences, my division, Behavioral and Social Sciences, and the partnerships that we have built across this area, not only with local police departments like Johnson City and local sheriff's office. Hawkins County just came to us the other day, but the partnerships we built, our partners are beginning to see that our students offer a lot when they graduate, and they're ready to work, they're ready to go and work. And so by that happening, we got wonderful students in the program, and they're going out talking up the program. And not only are they talking up the program, okay, but they're also going out referring their friends, stuff of that nature. So we're growing. We're growing by leaps and bounds, which is a good problem to have, but it's also a bad problem to have in the sense that, you know, at this point, I'm teaching 5 classes is considered full-time for a full-time instructor. I'm teaching 7. We have, 2 of those, which I'm glad to do because, you know, our motto here at Northeast State is we're here to get you there. And I myself, and I know all the other full-time instructors and even our adjuncts definitely feel the same way, that we will do whatever it takes to get our students through. And we care about our students, we love our students, and without our students like yourself, we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't have a job. So it's something that we feel very passionate about, and so we're willing to help out our students however we can. So it's not a problem for me to teach 7 courses, but eventually, you know, the good news is we're going to have to eventually bring on more adjuncts to help teach. And we just don't bring on any adjuncts. The good thing we have going here at Northeast State, as you know, is all of our instructors, much like you have in this program here, all got outside real world work experience. We just didn't go through college and get a bachelor's, master's, or PhD, or doctorate of education, and then come to work and come to Northeast and teach you theory. We all have real world experience. For myself, I have 30 years of military experience. You know, I'm still in the reserves, a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserves. You know, I also have law enforcement experience, fire experience, EMS, etc., FEMA, all that good stuff. And I'm not sitting here trying to toot my horn, but what I'm trying to say is this, is that all the instructors, we all bring something to the table, and that's what's so special about when our students come to Northeast State. And that's what's one thing our students say, and in fact I heard it several times today, is our students, okay, not only can we teach them theory and say, hey, this is what the book says, but we can also say, hey, this is reality, and this is what you're looking at. And that helps us again with building these relationships. And speaking of building relationships, in the criminal justice program, I'm blessed too because we have what's called the Criminal Justice Society.
Yes, tell us about that.
Yes.
I love it. Didn't you all just win something recently?
We did. We've actually gotten a couple of awards, very good memory, here in the last year. We actually brought the Criminal Justice Society back a year ago. And in the last year, besides all the great stuff that the student-run organization, so I got to give kudos. We've had 2 excellent presidents. We had Sydney Merritt, who started out.
She's great.
She's great. She is. She's over at ETSU now doing great things. And then we have Laurel Fortner, who's our current president, who's also doing great things and has taken what Sydney built for us and expanded on it. And it's just a great opportunity. You know, every week, Mikayla, when we have 20 and 25 and sometimes 30 students showing up every Thursday afternoon at 2:30 to hear whoever the guest speaker is this week, you know, we've had everybody from the Johnson City Police Department. We've had district attorneys, we've had investigators, we've had judges. I mean, this is all this year. FBI agents, Tennessee Department of Corrections. You know, we try and make sure, myself as the advisor, I try to make sure that we're hitting every aspect of criminal justice, whether it be the courts, law enforcement, probation, parole, and corrections, and making sure our students are exposed to it, because not everybody wants to be a cop like I was. But it's a great organization, great thing. So we won, to go back to your original question, we just got, one of the things we do is I insist with our students that we have a community service element. I think it's very important. Our community and the taxpayers of this state have given so much to us that we need to give back to those, to our community. So every Friday on average, we do some type of community service event. And we do a couple things. We do the Tennessee Adopt a Highway through the Tennessee Department of Transportation. Yes. If you've ever noticed, right outside the school here on State Route 75, between the Sullivan County line and mile marker 2, which is at the end of the runway here at the airport, we have nice signs that say Adopt a Highway Criminal Justice Society. So we clean that 4 times a year. And then we also volunteer our time at the Second Harvest Food Bank and go over there and sometimes pack food, most of the time do maintenance tasks, janitorial tasks, clean up, stuff of that nature. And again, you know, our motto, I was thinking of a motto back in the summer, and I'm a huge servant leader, so it's not necessarily what's best for me, it's what's best for the group. And so I want to make sure I expose my students to that, to servant leadership. And so the motto that I came up with this summer is servant leadership starts here. And I think it's important. So if you look up our Facebook site, if you look up the Criminal Justice Society on Facebook or any of our other social media outlets, you'll see that our motto is servant leadership starts here. And the way we try and do that is to say, hey, it's okay to have fun, it's okay to have an educational experience too, but we also need to give back. And especially in criminal justice, our jobs as public servants is to give back to the community, is to serve and protect, and is to be there as guardians for the community and not be there as a warrior. So, you know, I'm very proud of what we're doing here at Northeast State. The adjuncts I have working with me, you know, I have a TBI agent, I have an assistant district attorney, I have an airport police officer that comes over here as well, and she does an outstanding job. And these are the folks I have working for me. So these folks are bringing and working with me, and these folks are bringing that expertise to the table. So, you know, I'm really excited about where we are with the Criminal Justice Department. I know that you got to experience some of my classes.
Yes, I loved your classes.
Thank
your
you.
classes were great. You're a great professor.
Thank you.
You're not just my professor, you've been my advisor, and I think it's great to let people know that Northeast State, some of the advisors and professors, they all just care. They care.
They
They're
do.
here to get you there, and it's fact.
Absolutely love working here. And you know, this last year I had the honor of finishing my certificate in community college leadership. And one of the things that we look at in there is what is the role of the community college in today's society. And I was already bought in, drank the Kool-Aid, whatever you want to call it. I was already all in when it came to criminal justice. But it helped remind me what we do. You know, we serve very smart students like yourself. I mean, I have to admit, when I was in high school back 30 plus years ago, unfortunately at that time there was this thing that went around that obviously is not true, that said the only people that went to community colleges were basically mama and daddy's boy or girl, or those that couldn't get in any place else. And that's not the case. No. We have a group of about 800 high school students that came through the campus here recently to visit different departments. And the one thing I tell them is, I ask them, have you heard of colleges like Princeton, Columbia, Yale, Harvard? And they say, oh yeah, these are all big schools, big name schools. Yeah. So they're hard to get into, right? Oh yeah. Every year we have students from Northeast State going to one of those schools. Every year. So that shows what we're doing is paying off.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, since you were an officer, so do you think it's getting harder or easier to solve criminal cases nowadays?
Well, and that's a good question. It's getting harder and easier. And let me explain why I say that. Luckily, with technology and the different technologies that are coming along, it's getting easier to solve crime. Now, it still takes basic gut instinct, still takes basic common sense, recognize when something's wrong. It takes a very special person. The problem that we have is what we'd like to call the CSI effect. Many folks have seen, probably yourself too, have seen CSI, and you see all these wonderful things that supposedly are in law enforcement, and we can solve, I think it's an hour-long show, so in 52 minutes we're going to solve every crime out there, and you know, it's going to be perfect, it's going to come to resolution. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of those things, and even the departments that do have some of it, some of the smaller departments can't afford the stuff, even the newest technologies out there. And one thing I saw, I left active law enforcement in 2010 to start teaching here at Northeast State. But one thing even there what I was seeing is, even with the CSI effect, people would say, well, I saw this on TV, so you know, I want you to be able to do this or do that or whatever. And they expect, and it's not reality. And when you try and explain to them it's not reality, you know, they think that you're lying to them or trying to be lazy or something of that nature. And so it is very disconcerting, very disheartening, but it is what we call the CSI effect. So in a lot of ways it is getting easier, but at the same time it's also getting a little harder because people think we have stuff we don't.
Well, how do you feel about that when it involves the internet, though?
Well, that's a good question. Okay, internet, the good things about internet, there's good and bad things about the internet. I tell people that the internet is one of the best inventions ever had, and it's one of the worst inventions. Let me start with the best. When I went to college and when I was your age, we were still using typewriters. We still had to go to the library, go through the Dewey Decimal System, you know, sit there and pull books off the shelf, look at stuff, take notes. Nowadays you can just do simple Google searches or Bing searches or Yahoo searches and stuff of that nature. That's the good part. The bad part is now somebody can hide behind that computer and make the identity that they want to make. So they can make whatever fake identity they want to make. They can, if they're male, they can say they're female or vice versa, especially with a lot of our child predators out there. You know, they can make themselves sound like somebody they're not.
Yeah.
And another problem that you have with the internet, now you can perpetrate a crime from any part of the world. So you can be in sub-Saharan Africa someplace trying to perpetrate a crime, you know, on somebody in the United States, And unfortunately, even though people leave a digital footprint, okay,
Yes.
they leave a digital footprint, so IP addresses, stuff of that nature. So our folks in cybersecurity, cyber warfare, and all that good stuff are outstanding and great about being able to figure these things out. But the problem is for me to prosecute you, I have to prosecute you where the crime occurred. So let me tell you what that means. Let's say I'm in Johnson City, and you're here at the campus, our Bluntville campus, and let's say I perpetrate a crime against you over the internet. We have to prosecute that in Johnson City because that's where the crime initiated from. Now, with that same simplistic example, let's say now that crime occurred in sub-Saharan Africa, i.e. the person was acting like they were from this country and they weren't, and they scam you or defraud you of some money. Now, unfortunately, it is very hard for us to go back and prosecute because the crimes occurred in another country.
So you think it's increased, definitely,
It's-
because of technology advancing and because of the internet is just like
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes, and it's that's why one of the biggest growing fields in law enforcement has been for some time is cybersecurity, cyber warfare, anything cyber. So I recommend to anybody who's watching the show, or even folks that come into my office for advising, if you have any interest in some type of computer science or something of that nature, and you want to go into law enforcement, or you want to go on probation and parole or corrections or work in the courts, there's tons of opportunities out there for you, absolute tons. And we were lucky here in the last few weeks to have an FBI agent that came and talked to us. Now, I like what she said, because she said to my students, it really doesn't matter what you do, just be the best at it, which I thought was awesome. That was very motivational, not only for myself, but to our female students as well, because now they're seeing a very successful female in a male-dominated environment, and that was awesome to see. But one of the things before she said that is when they asked what should I major in, she said the same thing I said earlier, not criminal justice at the upper level, but do something in computer forensics, cybersecurity, something of that nature, because that's where it's booming, accounting and stuff of that nature. But at the end of the day, I think the best advice she can give is, it could be an underwater basket weaving as long as you're the best. And of course, that's what the FBI and some of the others are looking for, and some of the other federal agencies are looking for, is for you to be the best.
Okay. So how do you feel about what's going on in our world right now with the school shootings and the bombings and all that? What's your take on all of that with dealing with the law enforcement?
It's a great question. It's very unfortunate because in the era of the 24-hour news cycle, news, of course, is all the time going, as you know very well from being in the business. And all the time, the news cycle's going. So a lot of times, not like when I was growing up, we had 30 minutes of nightly news at night, maybe 30 minutes in the morning, and it was a matter of taking this much news and cramming it into this much. Now it's taking this and trying to expand it. And unfortunately, for a lot of folks out there that do these crimes, a lot of them are just wanting the attention, unfortunately. They're wanting the attention of doing these things, and they know they're going to get the attention on the 24-hour news cycle. Now, let me say that crime of any nature is absolutely horrendous and heinous in nature. Unfortunately, it's been around since the beginning of time, and unfortunately, it'll probably be here for a while longer. But, it's our job as in the criminal justice system to keep it as minimal, absolutely, as possible. But school shootings are obviously something that tugs all of our heart. It doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum, if you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, or something in between. Mm-hmm. We can all agree that we need to have safe schools. We demand safe schools. We want our children, our grandchildren, our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, whoever is working in those schools or going to those schools, to be safe at all times. So, there's been an argument here recently about arming teachers in school.
Yes, it is. That's a big thing right now.
That is.
Yes.
And I know recently there's some discussion about it in Lee County, Lee County, Virginia. And here's my take on this. Okay, teachers are awesome. Okay, we would not be sitting here right now if it wasn't because of teachers. Okay, if we wouldn't have had pre-K through high school teachers that taught us something, we would not be sitting here. You wouldn't be sitting here as a student, and I certainly wouldn't be sitting here as a faculty member. So I love our teachers. Yeah. Our teachers they're professionals, and they have to go to a lot of school, they have to get a lot of training, they have to get licenses. It's something that you just can't walk in off the street, say, hey, I want to be a teacher, and sign to it. With that being said, our teachers are experts in what they do, which is teach. but they have so much responsibility. They have so much that they have to do.
You've got like 30 or more students that
Absolutely.
their safety is in your hands. Say some shooter walks through the door.
Right.
Like those lives are under your control.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And you and I both know that every teacher out there, probably every teacher out there would lay their own lives down for one of their students. You see it in these videos, these after-action reports, when you see it where the teacher is on the outside huddling the kids, protecting the kids. But our teachers are so important, and they're so overworked, in my opinion, and underpaid for what they do. And I'm talking, K through 6, middle school, and then our high school teachers are so overpaid and overworked. Underpaid and overworked. And it's unfortunate because what ends up happening is there's so much responsibility on them with TVOS scores and trying to make sure that they teach to standards and all this. So do I necessarily think that we should be arming our teachers? The answer is no. And the reason why I say no is because these teachers already have so much responsibility. Now, let me flip that coin and say, do we need school resource officers in every public school in this country? And the answer is absolutely yes. Not only do we need them in the schools, but we need them to be trained. I have a lot of good friends that work for the Washington County Sheriff's Office, David Cape being one of them, that works over, he's a school resource officer at where my middle son goes to at Daniel Boone High School. Outstanding man, outstanding officer. David trains, he spent a number of years on patrol, so he went through the basic police recruit school, went through field training experience, worked on patrol, and he's been a school resource officer for several years now, and he has gotten a lot of specialized training. And, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're fine. I just have one final question
Sure.
for you. So how do you feel about television, how officers are portrayed on TV versus what reality really is?
Well, two things. Unfortunately, again, in our 24-hour news cycle, officers around the country with 18,000 law enforcement agencies, you can have, 18, let's just say, for example, each one of those agencies only has one officer, which we know is a lot more than that, there's several 100,000 officers across the United States. But let's just say there's 18,000. Unfortunately, you're going to have one or two bad ones. So it doesn't matter if 18,000 do something good that day. The one or two the ones that do something bad are the ones that are going to get the media's attention because, as we know, dirty laundry sells. And understandable, I know that. That's the way media makes its money. It makes its money off viewership, selling advertisement, and the more viewers it has, the more it can charge for advertising. Look, I get it, it's a business, and I don't...
It is.
And I understand that, and I respect that, and I respect the folks that are in media, because it's a tough job, and it's something that we have to do to keep, on the First Amendment, the whole idea is to keep government, i.e. me, honest and accountable, and the media is the one that does it, so that's a great thing.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
It's been an honor to have you here.
Well, my pleasure.
So thank you. We'll be right back in just a moment after we wrap up.
I've learned a lot of things in my life, but there is no substitute for hard work. If you've got the will and determination, doors will always continue to open. Life puts us in the driver's seat. Where we go and what we accomplish is up to us. What's that old saying? When the going gets tough, the tough get going.
That concludes the program for today. We talked with Eric Stanton, criminal justice instructor at Northeast State. Community is very important to the students at Northeast State Community College. At this program takes a look at a few of the subjects that they find important. Until we meet next time, on behalf of the students, staff, and faculty at Northeast State Community College, I'm Mikayla Ramey, and this is Direction Northeast State.